called rabbit things. See, it's got like little like folders. No, my ball went under the couch. Here, you have to reach that long with the arm of yours. Battle axe! Oh! My face was just destroyed.
Play sprinkler.
Oh, I like this.
I just
Walk away. I will follow you. I think I'm gonna take it.
Christian, did you call for it?
We'll bury you.
I called for it.
You throw that on me?
I'm not gonna throw it on you.
Oh no.
I'm going to lay it on. Just leave it there.
Aww. My body is turned into poo. Yeah. Woo! Sleeping bags. Am I right? Yeah. These aren't sleeping bags. You're just gonna put everything up there on me, aren't you? I'm not gonna be able to get up. Put a few more things. Oh no, you ain't up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the giant ape fighting the Pokemon.
It hurts.
Okay. Game. Now you are the game. You have the sword. And I will be. Yes.
At least I know my name.
You don't know what yeah, you're Genji. Got it? I will be
Ah, can you remember the name? I'm not gonna tell you.
Oh, it's just somebody with a pistol.
Thank you. Ah. Wow.
I'll be
Okay,
No, I'm Soldier 76. I got you in my sights.
you have no way.
Little blue deal.
It never runs out. Ammo. Okay.
You have
Why would you do that? You know how I feel like. Ah! Help! Cat! It's the cement! I can't get you. He's covered. Get it? Get it? Get it? He's covered.
I've got you in my sights.
I'm not in your sight anymore! Ow! Logan, just press ow! Okay. Oh, please don't hit me with that!
Hit him with it. Hit him with it.
No, that one hurt.
Come on, hit him with it. Damn crap.
Let's do a quick try.
Alex.
Alex, go.
Go. Haha, you have nothing.
Sammy. Missy. Ding.
Oh, you got this.
That's CR.
Hello. You know my father.
CR.
What's your name?
My name is something. I don't know the name.
Montoya.
I'm Robert Miller.
Oh, wait, it was no insurance.
I couldn't do it. I don't know how to get it. And you do the ball. CRU. What is CRU? Yes, CRU.
See, are you? Oh, let's go. Wait, the ball's all wet.
Give me it.
The ball's all wet. What? Boom. Your turn, dude. Stop. No.
It's not.
It never stops.
CRU.
No, bingo. It's yours. Nope.
What?
Jinx.
No, it's my turn.
Run. Run.
Right. Use attack.
Alex is crud. Oh my!
CRUD. I win. See this.
Noah! That was only CRU!
No,
Noah!
he got CR. You, and then I get a
Sorry, you got CR. You. Because it was you. You only have C. Go, Jimmy. Oh!
Get it.
Throw it in. Yeah!
I got it. Alright, CR.
Okay, that's it, Genji. I break your arm.
No.
With my
Get over
Uber
here.
punch.
Get over here.
No! Get over there!
Get over there, I said.
Made my pull down on my weapon.
Sam is picking down, so I'm not gonna.
Make a move!
Weapon on.
Go!
I have more energy capacity
Miss. There you
Alright, it's time for the game!
than you. Whoa.
I don't care. I'm not. Alright. Noah.
Look, it's a thing.
Noah.
Oh,
What are you gonna
no,
say?
not this game.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
This game again.
Oh, I love this game.
go.
I'm awesome at this game.
I'm good at it, but
Cody, how do you play this game? It's awesome. You'll see.
Yeah, there it is.
sick of this game.
You like the spot?
So, you're sick of this game? You've only played it once in your life. I'm James Bond. You lie.
I'm so.
You've been living up to too long. I've become soft.
Wow, no, it's too good.
Okay.
I have two less.
Have you guys missed out on Dino's Dragons? No, it's number 1. You do
I
not
haven't
want to
missed-
miss
I
out on
did.
number 2.
Is the next one next week?
It's Friday. It's in 2 days.
I'm
Yeah.
coming to that one.
Good. It's on Friday. Thank you.
You.
We have leftovers from Caveman Night last week. Tonight we're going to be talking about evolution, but before all that, we're going to play some games. So we're going to run outside and run around outside.
That's like Hooligan.
We're going to play out.
That's what I said.
All out. Does everyone know how to play all out? I can skip the explanation if you all know.
I have no
Yeah,
idea.
well, I
Who doesn't know how to play all out? Doesn't?
I know.
I do know how to play.
Alright, so
I know what this is.
all out. We're gonna have to switch that on. There we go. We're gonna have a white cross out on the ground made out of rope. Okay, we're gonna have 4 teams: pink, blue, orange, green, and it's a lot like capture the flag. The way it works, there's gonna be a treasure chest in each team's square, and that treasure chest will be filled with a multitude of treasures. parkour all over
I
this
want to
card.
watch people be like,
Sam,
here, pass it.
In each treasure chest,
Alright, guys, listen.
inside each treasure chest will be one gold piece worth 10,000 points, one red piece worth, or sorry, 2 red pieces worth 5,000, 3 greens worth 2,000, and 2 tiny blue ones worth negative 4,000. They're the poison treasure. You gotta try and get rid of them. Now during the game, you can only move one treasure at a time. You can't hide it on your person. You must hold it in your hand. You can only have one piece of treasure. So, take like a blue out of yours, run over to the other side, put in the blue, take out one of the other ones that's available, run it back, put it in your treasure chest. That's most of the game. There's more to it though, because like Capture the Flag, you can tag people. So,
I have a question.
Can you pass?
Is it gonna be
can
on
we
the pavement
finish
or the grass?
explaining and then do the...
About this game.
No grass.
Did you just change the name of that game that we played a couple weeks ago?
It's the same name because it is the same game. We didn't change anything. We changed the location.
Super good. What's a super?
I know, just like all brain power gone. See you later. In the middle will be a super judge. The super judge can be brought someone you've tagged, and they will give you 1,000 extra points for every person you tag. Tagging works like this. Pink team can tag people inside pink square. That's it. Pink team can't tag people anywhere else. Blue team can tag people inside blue team square.
Very good art.
Orange team can. Thank you.
I know,
I
right?
spent a long time on it. All right, so let's say pink tags blue. Okay, there you go. Good example. Pink tags blue. Blue's now out. Blue has to go to jail. Blue can't leave jail till another blue goes and tags that guy who's blue. But this guy can't be tagged. He has to actually get there safe.
Why doesn't
Once
he
he-
have any eyes?
What?
Why doesn't he have eyes?
I know, it's sad.
Because he's made of sticks.
He can't see.
He's blind.
yeah.
Sticks don't have eyeballs.
Our sticks
He's
circular.
He's a
How
stick
did he
man.
find
Well,
it?
actually, sticks. That's why you put googly eyes on.
I did paint him with blue paint, so maybe I should have taken the time to like give him eyeballs out of paint. So, I don't know. Anyway, so blue team tags blue team. They get out of jail. They have to take the free walk back. They can't. Why is it skipping all over the place? They can't skip the free walk back. They must take the free walk back. You can't get out of jail and then go to the treasure chest. So totally illegal. So get out of jail, go back to your team side. Then you can split. You can go wherever you want to go after that. That's free. There are these white circles around each treasure chest. They are the safe zones. Oh, hey leaders. Favor to ask of you. We're missing one of my safety zone ropes.
What?
I just remembered that I forgot that. So whoever's free for the next few minutes, could you just like scrounge in that area and my office area and look for a tiny bundle of clothesline rope, or maybe even by the computer? Because if not, we just gotta come up with something, just like any old rope will do, really. There are just random ropes in those cupboards.
No, I think I moved that into your office for
It's very possible it got tossed in my office. Things do that all the time. Alright, take your free walk back. Boogaloo. Alright, we'll have leaders spaced around trying to watch you guys, make sure you don't cheat, so please don't cheat. If you cheat, we'll throw you out of the game. Your team will be down a man for the rest of the game, and you'll probably lose. Team at the end with the most treasure in their chest wins. Basically what we'll do is we'll just start a countdown when the game starts, and if the countdown is reached, we'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and when we say 1, we're done, that's it. You cannot pick up any more treasure after we say 1, but here's the deal. Any treasure in your hand is yours. So you can't pick up any more after 1, but any treasure in your hand is yours. You can go take that and put it back in your treasure chest. Once the game ends, put all your treasure in your treasure chest, then walk the treasure chest into the center. Let the super judge count your treasure. Do not dump out your treasure. Do not recombine your treasure. Do not, sort out, make everyone's even until the super judge says they're done counting, or else you didn't actually get any points. All right, that's the game. Any questions?
Wait, how do we select teams?
I will select teams. Anything else? Yes.
Do we have to get the things and run and put it in the basket? Or can we stand in there without putting it in our basket?
Until the end of the
Because
game.
nobody can tag us.
That's a
Can I be the
really
pink
good
team?
question.
Can
Yes.
I be the pink team? Just me on the pink team.
Yeah, just him, just him.
Yes, Jill.
No,
Or
pink
Jill.
select
The super
color.
judge.
Yeah.
I want to see how much you'll lose.
So here's how it works.
You
I'll
can't
rewind to
tag
the pink
me in
type.
my own area.
Daniel.
So
I'm just gonna hide
when this happens, Gio,
So you're gonna have
right
like
here,
500 people coming
Pink
after your
can either
stuff,
take him
and you're
straight
just
to
gonna have
jail,
tag them.
or
That's right.
Pink can take him
You must
to the super judge. Say, hey, I caught this guy. Super judge will give you 1,000 points, and then you take him to jail. So you have to weigh it out.
That wastes
Do
time.
you want the 1,000 points and you want to waste a little bit of time, or do you want to skip the 1,000 points and save some time? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, any other questions? Yeah.
Wait, does it have to be a 4 on a team?
It's 4 teams. I didn't say how many players have
How
to be
many
on a
people?
team.
How many people are
Count
on
heads.
a
I
team?
don't know. Do math.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm out
Did
of
we find it, by the way?
No,
It's
no,
not
that's
there.
not.
Wait, do leaders count?
16
Do leaders count?
That depends on how many leaders we have. All right, let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Right here, this is a team.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That means it will be 4 per team, but 1 team.
Okay, so
Our team,
we'll
we
be
have
the
our
3
team
team.
right here.
We'll be the
We
3
got our
team.
team. We don't want anyone else.
Daniel, we'll be the 3 team.
If I come on card,
Do you think that's alright, Daniel?
We could have somebody else.
If we're the 3 team?
Gives us 5 players.
All right, this will work.
Oh no, it's gonna strangle us.
You just let her see her now. That's what's gonna strangle her.
All right, team.
Daniel, we have a team already made up right here. We got it.
The only problem I have with that, guys, is then the other teams might not be fair, just because crammed your own team together. But let's see.
Can we get a team of 3?
That could almost be fair. You guys want to make your own teams?
Yes. This is a 3
So
team.
everyone shoot for a team of 4. One of you can have a team of 3.
18.
If you guys want to be a team of 3, I'll allow that. That's
Yes.
fine.
Yes.
All right.
No, we're
So everybody
the
else make a team of 4. Everybody else make a team of 4.
We're the team of 3.
No, we gotta have a plan.
Sometimes I just do. We get a leader.
No.
See what happens.
I don't know.
That's okay.
Like sometimes I just do.
All right. Team of 3. You guys are pink.
Oh.
You guys are pink.
Because of my fitness turn, is that why?
Team of 4 right here. You guys are blue.
Is that why it's cheating?
No, dude, we're brothers.
All right. 2 remaining quasi-team people. You can have orange or green. Those are your choices.
It's hey.
On their team. I think put on their team.
Sorry, I
wanted to.
sometimes I just stand
Green.
Is this what
This will
I
be orange. Gio, you're on this team.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys are Oh, you guys are team? Wait, you were never on that team?
That's what I'm
Okay.
No. No, this is close enough. Magenta.
No, we're good. Gio, you want to be on this team? I don't think they kicked you off.
Sometimes they're crowded and make something.
So, they didn't kick you out. They didn't kick you out. You want to be on that team together. You want to be on that team together.
Yeah, sometimes I just like everyone's bunch of people like
You come here. I'll introduce you.
sometimes I don't know how much
I'll introduce you, Gio. Alright, so make sure you guys all know each other's names real quick. We're in the same grade and class.
Do you hear about
Like
White
3
Rabbit?
years straight, even downstairs.
You know, he didn't like
I was about to say ice.
You call him Noah, who is the friend of
This is what we're gonna do.
Okay,
No.
Noah was Cowboy.
Okay, ready?
Therefore, this is not Noah.
Tap on Noah.
Okay. Alright, so Gio, Olivia, Jaden, Isaiah. You guys got that? Okay, cool. You guys are.
This is my weapon.
What'd you decide?
How much do you
Green
want?
team. There we go. Like Gio's shirt. Alright, you guys are orange team. Don't forget. Alright, guys, time to head outside and downstairs. Go.
Hey, whatever, keep it.
Let me know how that works, Natalie.
And he was trained by River Song, who has been repeatedly proven to know the TARDIS better than the Doctor.
Sometimes I wonder what she did. Did she just study it or talk to it or?
I don't know, because
I feel like there's like a TARDIS training school around her.
but the TARDIS is alive.
That's why
It's not a machine, and how could Missy be the one that would? Because the TARDIS must hate Missy by now.
I would think so. Maybe it's
Hey,
This-
boo.
This makes me think that Nardole must have an ulterior motive, because I think that the TARDIS is deliberately trying to separate the Doctor from Nugget. Well, it trapped him on Earth or it trapped him away from the Doctor.
I think it did that though because it sensed the danger of the iceberg.
But then why would it leave the Doctor there? Wouldn't it?
It's not trying to save the Doctor, it's trying to save itself.
But the TARDIS loves the Doctor.
I think the TARDIS tolerates the Doctor because it's fun and she can take him where she wants.
Also,
How is an inanimate object capable of feelings?
the TARDIS is alive.
Oh, okay.
It's sentient. I was responding to Autumn.
Oh, I didn't realize that she was
asking
still here.
how an object.
No, I am taking advantage of like however many minutes of quiet
You
I will do
this
that.
will
What do I
bring.
deserve?
No, I mean like your guys' talking isn't a big deal. I work with first grade. Like if I was an adult, I
on.
can so
I like this idea though.
Oh my gosh. I just can't even go downstairs. I can't even deal. I didn't even want handling, to be honest. Thankfully my daughter is like, oh.
Sitting in a
hi.
chair with neck support is so nice right now.
Oh. Why have you not had neck support?
I've been in an office chair all day.
What have you been doing?
Web design.
Oh.
Yeah.
For
I got a
yourself?
job.
You do?
Mhm.
What?
Yeah.
Since when?
Since I got hired on Tuesday, hired on last Tuesday, started this Monday.
Excellent.
Yeah.
For who?
Plumbingsupply.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it like is it like telecommuting stuff? Is it like they
No, they have an office in Chico.
Oh nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Is it full time? Like it's like a
Yeah.
real gig?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, you have a car,
Yeah.
you have a license, you have a job.
Yeah.
You're becoming like a full fledged adult. You're not like a
I
fledgling
know, right?
anymore. What happened?
It's kind of sad.
I
isn't
don't. I
it?
was just gonna say I don't know if I'm ready for this. It's weird. It's got to be exciting though too.
Yeah.
Cool. So the next step is moving out
Maybe.
eventually.
Eventually. Kind of want to save up a little bit.
Yeah. That's wise. Life is expensive. And so you do their website.
Well, I'm one of the people that works on their website.
Yeah.
You're talking to yourself for a second there?
My grandma said it's always okay to talk to yourself, just never answer yourself. That's when there's a problem.
Testify to that.
I answer myself all the time.
Oh, see, Granny would say that you were nuts. Then you laugh like that, and I don't actually beg to differ from Granny. Can you hear that in heaven, Grandma?
You doing evil laugh time?
It's hot in here.
Oh, it feels good.
People ignore the laugh.
I don't want the rest of these
Stand.
chips right now. Would you like some chips?
No, thank you. I just got done having taco salad at home.
Okay.
But you know what it actually was missing? Chips.
That's rather funny.
Isn't that funny that it would like be?
Well, if I had a TARDIS, I'd take these back to you when you were still eating your taco salad. But I don't have a TARDIS.
No. And as I learned this evening, it is living, and so
Yeah.
I've never watched even one episode.
Mhm.
Simon likes it, but
You'd be forgiven for thinking the TARDIS was not alive. It doesn't look alive.
well, when all you have to go off of is like nothing, basically.
Yeah.
It's a blue phone box.
It doesn't look alive, and even And in most episodes, it's not actually, like, it doesn't act alive in most episodes. So,
But it actually is.
yeah,
Who made it?
the Time Lords. It's very ambiguous how the TARDIS came to be.
Okay. And how did the Doctor acquire it?
He stole it.
Oh. And is the TARDIS pleased with this
Yes,
happening?
very much so. In fact, the TARDIS claims that she stole the Doctor.
Oh. I think that the TARDIS has a thing for the Doctor.
Yeah, she kind of does.
Oh, see? I don't really have to know very much to know that.
There's even an episode called The Doctor's Wife, which refers to the TARDIS.
Oh my goodness. Did they have them stand like the classic Americana painting with the pitchfork?
No.
And did the TARDIS have a white apron on?
Nope.
That would have been funny. Because the name of that painting is The Farmer's Wife.
Huh. That would have been funny.
Yeah. And they were the artist's aunt and uncle, and the guy isn't a farmer at all. He's a dentist, actually.
Huh.
But he's in overalls, looking like a poor, destitute farmer with a pitchfork. And
It's
a
quite
wife
funny.
with a white apron. Go figure. Oh, man. Who's gonna be hot enough this next week to, like, go out on the boat?
We were out there last night.
For you, I bet it was lovely.
Yeah, it was nice.
The water warm.
I didn't actually go in the water.
Yeah. Can you go in the water right now?
I think so.
Yeah. There's something about that algae, something or other, I don't know.
Yeah. Seems like they're not too concerned about it, though, 'cause they're letting people out there.
Perfect. If Army Corps is good, if there was a problem, they wouldn't let people in the water.
I'm sure that they tested it or something.
They had to have. It had to have probably been something that was up the stream, that was
Mhm.
coming in, because it was only killing fish where the flow would come in.
Yeah, it was only in one area.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was something that was being brought into the bigger reservoir.
Don't know.
So, I don't know.
But it seems like everything's fine.
Cool. We'll have to go.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Dragons, Dinos, and Donuts, possibly could go Friday, but I don't want to have to watch the clock.
I
tick
didn't get to
back.
go to the first one.
Simon didn't go. Sean and Olivia did, and then I was downstairs at women's dinner, so I was
I'll
here.
be at this
but-
next one.
So will I. I'm very excited, and Simon will be too.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we went down to visit my grandpa last weekend, so
Where's that at?
Madeira near Fresno.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was it hot?
Not really.
No. Well, no, I guess because last weekend
last
is when
weekend
it
was pretty cool.
Yeah, even here it was very unseasonably cool. Cool. And how is he?
Good.
Is it your mom's dad or your dad's dad?
My dad's dad.
Nice. So
I
you
love-
work like a legit 9 to 5, huh?
7:45 to 4:45.
All right. Wow. Those are good hours.
Yeah.
But you don't like to wake up in the morning.
I don't, but I'm adjusting.
You will. It's unfortunate how it happens, but it does happen.
Mm-hmm. How was your week?
It's stressful. We're still in school.
Oh wow.
We get out Friday. We are done teaching the kids, but this last week has been because the teachers stay with the class. The classes move classrooms, and so there's like you have to pack everything up and clean everything really well and prepare it for the next class, and then go into your new space and
Gotcha.
unpack some. The teacher really does most of it over the summer, but there's a lot of the pedagogy is involving the children, so it's not something that should be done in their absence. And so, you know, they say that moving is second stressful to losing a spouse as far as like levels of stress, things that you can endure that would be high stress. And we're doing it with 21st graders.
How fun.
Yeah. So, and everybody's very tired as far as like adults because we've just
And I'm sure the kids are all have spring fever.
their behavior is just like the good kids
Wait.
are being crazy.
It's
No, like amped. Like
okay.
ramping
I'm
up.
like, that
No.
doesn't sound right.
Sorry, I guess their behavior is ramping. And then like we've got these horrible behavior children, who aren't coming back to our school, and so like there's just full on oppositional
care.
defiance as a first grader, and it's just like, alright, well, you get nothing from me if you're not participating with what we're doing, like besides me reminding you to make a basket choice because that's in your plan, and setting my timer for 5 minutes and walking away from you. That's all that we get. That's all that you get. But every time you ask him to do something, like we were working on a Father's Day project today, coloring, and we were like, so why don't you do that? And he's like, no. And I leaned over to my teacher that I work with, and I was like, I swear to you, if we would have told him not to do it, hey, I don't want you to make your dad a card, he would have been like, no, I'm totally doing it. Like, it's just complete oppositional defiance.
Try out some reverse psychology.
And he's 6, right? And it's like, and he's going to a full-on public school where like they're gonna kick him out for his behavior. Like we're very grace. It's not a Christian school, but we show a lot of grace for negative behavior. And there's a lot of people that invest a lot of time giving children opportunities to heal from trauma and things like that, which really is why the behavior is the way it is, because like behavior is always indicative of something else. Behavior is never just its own. It's always an indicator. And so it's like it sucks because his mom thinks that we're a problem. And it's like, no, you need to get to public school and find out what it's like. Who won?
I did.
Just you?
Yes.
No. I thought it was a team.
No.
It was a team.
I know. I was the pink team.
No team.
The team was me. Just me.
Superstar.
Yes.
Who won, Olivia?
I don't know.
That was an engaging game.
Yeah, it was.
It becomes smart on him. Always smart, he said.
We haven't started yet, so.
I was wondering, you appeared.
Are you gonna get treats?
Always.
I see you.
Using magic?
You wanna see?
Using the time travel?
Yeah, the TARDIS. They're using the TARDIS.
Who's using the tunnel?
Doctor
Mom, I'm a small.
What?
Pretty toasty.
No, what, honey?
Sorry, Natalie.
So who went?
I was like, whoa, we're kissing.
Okay.
If you need
Guys, we
more,
have to
like
weird
2
out.
votes
This is
for
what
us.
do you want? I'll bring it to you.
Pastor Daniel, how do you get rid of this thing?
Oh, it's called a benign growth, and you have to have it surgically removed.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Jaden, can you sit on the blue fire?
pretty annoying. He stole this.
Thanks.
Why don't you steal his seat now?
The person it attaches itself to becomes ignorant.
Thank you.
That's not what benign means.
It's what it should mean, though.
Wait, so does that mean you sat here?
Alright guys, it's time to worship. Let's open up in prayer.
Alright guys, I'm gonna pray. Let's settle down.
Yes, that's
Dear God, thank you so much for everyone here, that we can lift you up and have a great time playing games, get some of our energy out, and just bless this time, though, Lord. Help us be able to focus on you and lift you up, and be able to focus during Daniel's teaching. And thank you that we get to be here and do this. We love you, God. In Jesus' name, amen. You are good when there's nothing good in me. You are love on display for all to see. You are light when the darkness closes in. You are hope, you have covered all my sin. You are peace. And you are peace when my fear is crippling. You are true, even in my wandering. You are joy, you're the reason that I sing. You are life, in your death has lost its sting. And oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. See, you are more. And you are more than my words will ever say. You are Lord, all creation will proclaim. You are here, in your presence I'm made whole. You are God, above else I'm letting go. Sing, oh, I'm running, and oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. Sing, my heart will sing no other name. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, my heart will sing no other name. Jesus, my heart will sing no other name. Jesus. And oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. One more time. And oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. And nothing compares to your embrace. I never hear the sound, Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. How you love me. Singing Paint the Morning Sky. And you paint the morning sky with miracles in mind. My hope will always stand, for you hold me in your hand. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. How you love me. Sing, Lord, I'm amazed. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. How you love me. Sing how wide, how wide, how deep, how great is your love for me. Sing how wide, one more time. And how wide, how deep, how great is your love for me. 'Cause Lord, I'm amazed. And Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. How you love me. Sing how you love me a couple more times. How you love me. How you love me. Dear Lord, we are so amazed, God, by how much you love us, how much you do for us every day, God. Help us really understand that and just appreciate your kind of unconditional love, and help us learn to be that way, God, through you, through seeking you and reading your word and connecting with you. And thank you for everyone here that we can learn more about that tonight. We love you in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Whitney.
You're welcome.
All right.
Oh.
The answer to your question is it can kill us.
I'm not sure it's a valid answer, but okay.
It's possible. It's like super bowl.
I mean, aliens probably evolved.
And then they die.
They form humans.
Yeah.
And start the human race. You were a smart kid.
Yep.
Well, he's not though.
All right, pink team. Way to show up every record I've ever heard of. You have negative 16,000 points. Good job for pink team.
Hey, go green team.
All right.
Isn't it if we got like all the bills or something that we would get extra points? That was in a rule.
Yes,
the
that
other
was
shoot
day.
in the
a
sun.
rule? I thought that was a
You ever
rule.
shoot the sun?
All right, so third place team with 66,000 points, Team Orange.
Yeah,
You go.
In second place with 72,000, Team Green. Which means the winning team with 101,000 points is Team Blue. There you go, Team Blue.
Blew us out of the water.
Alright, I do have to say though, special credit goes to Team Pink for being the number one taggers and bringer to centers. I think it was mostly Noah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like
congrats.
3 in a row.
You guys had 2 the first round, 3 the second round, and 1 the third round. The only other team that even brought anybody into the middle was Blue Team, and they only did it once. Nobody else brought anybody into the middle. For points.
We got first place, so
You
you're
were
bringing in
desperate.
all those captors and having them
It's only better
tortured
not
for a
waste
while,
time if
and
it's
then we
wasted
bring them
time.
back to
That's
prison.
all I got to say. Alright, so these will be for later. I'll explain. We're going to be talking about evolution tonight, and I tried to shorten this up as much as I can because usually evolution is such a big, giant topic that we never finish. We start down like a quarter of what we're going to talk about, and then we never finish. So I actually I thought about making all of tonight one slide. And that way we would ensure we'd finish, but I made it 3. So we have 3 slides.
Can you read any of the text on the slides?
Maybe not the second one. But the other ones you can. The other ones you can.
Oh, give him
Do you have a microphone?
You read the future though. Wait till you get to slide 2. It's gonna be amazing. Okay. So here's the deal about evolution. There's so much more we could say. Evolution is really happening, but what is it really doing? Evolution is happening, but what is it really doing? Yes.
Doesn't say really.
It's adapting to your environment.
It's adapting to your environment. Okay, we could put it like that. Anybody else want to throw something in the ring here? Anybody? Yeah, Logan?
Changing to a more upgraded state.
Changing to a more upgraded state. I'll give you that. Sometimes it appears that way. Sure. Yeah. Autumn.
Adapting.
Adapting. Yeah. Okay.
growing bigger.
Growing bigger. I don't think that counts as evolving. Really. Children evolve into parents?
He's kind of right. The obesity rate is really
You know, truth be told, evolution is a very loosely defined word, and it really does mean change over time. It doesn't necessarily mean any specific kind of change over time. So yeah, if you're going to use the word in its loosest sense, you're right. Children do evolve into parents. But under that same general guideline, a pack of Skittles evolves into trash. So like, you know what I mean? Like, you can really take the word that loosely, and it means a lot. So what are we talking about, though? What we're talking about in particular is the evolution of life over time, living organisms, populations of organisms. This is something that gets talked about a lot, but I don't know if it's really given the same rules and boundaries that everything else in science is given. One of the things you'll hear about in science class is the scientific method, right? Can anyone quote me like the real simple version? What is the scientific method?
Science.
No, maybe a little less simple than that.
Scientific method.
That doesn't work.
Yay. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone who's not a joker in the last 5 seconds? Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Oh, okay. Autumn.
Hypothesis, observation, data. Oh, come on, go back to science fair. What is it?
Go back to
You're doing it out of order, but you're getting them all.
eventually evolves into
Theory.
Dairy?
Conclusion.
It's completely out of order. But
Ice
yes, you basically got it.
You got conclusion.
I'm the oldest person in this room.
Okay, so
And I'm
it's,
the only one that can say it.
it's observation. Okay, so you see something. Okay. Then it's data. So you don't just look at it. You have to look at it over time and to take stats, keep on accruing data. Then you create a hypothesis and you go, I think all of these things are happening for this reason. And then you have to come up with a theory that you can test, something that's testable.
I've got
And
one
once you have your
already.
theory that you can test, then you actually do the test, and then you have a conclusion. So was my hypothesis right? Was my hypothesis wrong? That's the thing your theory is supposed to test. So this is the question. Evolution as a means of explaining how we go from non-life to life, as a means of explaining how we go from simple life to complex life. Have we ever applied the scientific method to it?
No.
Kinda, sometimes, sort of, not all the way.
Maybe.
What kind of test would you do to test evolution?
Oh,
Yeah.
use Skittles as an example.
Okay.
It was once a bag, then it was torn open. tested, that was the destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's definitely
And it was
And then
gutted
it
That's
out.
part of evolution,
and then
right?
it was eaten all up and thrown in the trash and then burned and all that great stuff.
I feel like we're digressing a bit here.
Some other
All right.
So sorry,
Anybody else?
Skittlebag.
What ways could you actually create a hypothesis around evolution, the theory of it, and then put it to the test? Yeah.
You put one species in one area and then the same species in a different area, and if they change, you'll have evolution.
There you go.
They
Okay.
adapt.
They adapt. Now, my question is, did you test the whole theory?
Well, it starts with
No,
baby
because
steps.
you'll die.
Baby steps.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you can show that there's
So,
one change.
this
why
is the
can't-
issue.
Why can't you just say that there's more changes?
Okay, so here's the issue. If I say that there is one change at one point in time, then I've proven that there was one change at one point in one point in time.
Well, what if they all
But if
die?
I'm going to make a theory that says over millions of years things happen, you can only test that over millions of years. That is the inherent problem. If I claim that things are happening over a million years,
So you had
my test will last over a million years.
You're not gonna
So
be
you
around
had
to
to
see
live.
the end.
that.
This is the problem. Theory of evolution basically says, well, since it's inconvenient to do the scientific method, we'll just assume that it passes the test. That's not good enough for me. So we're going to look at some of the mechanisms here. First off is natural selection. So natural selection, it gets a lot of credit for things that are technically going to fall under the natural selection umbrella, but that doesn't mean that bigger conclusions can always get drawn. So natural selection did cause finches on the Galapagos Islands to have larger beaks during periods of drought. Did I misspell it? I fixed that rot. It didn't save my change.
Periods of drought.
All right, this is supposed to say drought. Most of you guys probably don't know how to spell drought anyway, so it doesn't matter. But whatevs. It was supposed to say
Capital I and
I know,
island,
this is
there
the
should be a
example.
capital I for island.
Why?
Because it's Galapagos Islands is the title of it.
I feel like PowerPoint should have caught that one for me. That's just grammar. Okay, so pretend that says drought. This is true. What's interesting is, I don't know if you guys are aware, Darwin didn't actually even put this in his first draft of his book. This wasn't a big deal for Darwin. It wasn't even the initial journal he kept while he was on his ship sailing around. This was in Journal 2, where he was like writing his just notes on thoughts on things. And he mentioned that while he was in the Galapagos, he saw these finches. So then later, people go back to the Galapagos Islands. They want to see these finches. They got popular because someone actually wrote a book, not Darwin, and the book was named Darwin's Finches. What? And that was in the 40s, and that made his finches very, very popular, even though he mentioned them one time in like a journal entry.
So when
Not the
he
point, though.
discovered finches.
He totally saw finches. He didn't discover them. He didn't base his entire theory on them. That's all just kind of
Oh, I just asked, did he
hearsay.
discover them?
Oh no, he didn't discover them. They're called Darwin's finches because everyone looks at them and says this is a huge part of his argument. It's not really though. But here's the truth about the finches. The truth about the finches is as soon as the drought went away, as soon as the rains came back, their beaks went back to normal.
It proves him wrong.
What? That's kind of the point. The drought comes and goes, and as it does, the beaks change size back and forth. And basically this is how it works. The finches on the island have many food sources, but during a drought, the primary food source switches from being insects to being nuts with very hard shells. And so when the birds with bigger beaks are in a drought season, they're the birds who can get at the food, and all the birds with tiny beaks are like, that nut's too hard to crack, so I die.
Kind of like a pug, and then.
No, I'm not kidding. I die.
I died.
But here's the thing. If natural selection was going to make permanent changes in a population of organisms, then when the drought's over, theoretically, the DNA of all surviving finches, or most surviving finches, should be pushed in the direction of large beaks, and there'll be no small beak birds left to breed and have babies with small beaks, and they'll all go on being large beak birds forevermore. But that's not actually how DNA works. And so natural selection does cause adaptation, but the problem is this. The DNA always had the switch for small beaks and always had the switch for large beaks. And just because all the small beak birds die, doesn't mean all the large beak birds stop having small beak DNA in them. They're still carrying the gene for small beaks. So at the end of the drought, and there's only all the small beaks are dead and all the large beaks are alive, the population just goes back to 50-50 again because the small ones aren't dying anymore. So this is the problem. When you say natural selection can push a population far into one direction and eventually, after lots of pushes, fish become lizards, or whatever push you're going to suggest, that doesn't line up with science.
No, it's birds become dinosaurs.
Birds become No, dinosaurs become birds. But yeah, anyways.
I know, but you have to.
Manatees become elephants, wolves become whales. The problem is the
Ladybugs
DNA
inside,
can't
yeah.
keep pushing in the same direction.
Ladybug
DNA doesn't
gets
actually
present.
work like that.
Doesn't-
Really, mostly what it does is it gets rid of poorly equipped animals. If they're not well equipped for their environment, they die. And what's left over is well equipped animals. That doesn't actually permanently change the species DNA going forward in even the most ideal circumstances. Usually, the only time where you see that push lasting long term is when the changes in their environment last long term. Then natural selection just keeps on happening the exact same way because the environment changes. If the environment goes back and forth, the changes go back and forth. Yeah,
So life just pretty much slapped them really hard in the face.
that's pretty much it.
Life
And then when life got nicer a few years later, then they came on back.
Wait.
And then he slapped them again.
Yeah, eventually.
Wait.
But I mean, these drought seasons, they can last more than a decade. They can last 20, sometimes even 30 years. So these are long stretches of time.
Did you say wife or life?
Life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not thrive.
Okay.
Got it.
So next thingy, mutations. Mutations can happen during birth for any organism. This happens to single cell organism. This happens to turtles. This happens to you and I. This happens to all living organisms that we know of. But they're usually a neutral mutation, meaning you can't even tell. Like until you do a DNA test, it's not even obvious that a mutation occurred. Or they're negative, meaning bad things are now going to be in that organism, or it may even kill the organism. The mutated DNA may create an organism that can't actually survive past birth or for very long. But we do sometimes see positive mutations. And positive mutations are not what you're thinking. This is not like suddenly you're born with X-ray vision or fire breath or something like that. I just want to have Wolverine claws. Is that so much to ask? Usually, these kind of positive mutations are actually the loss of something that was negative in their parents' DNA. So let's say you're a beetle. I know that's a pretty big stretch, right? And you're on an island, and it's a very windy island this year, and your parents have these big, glorious, iridescent wings, and you're born with a mutation where you don't have wings. And the wind blows one day, and you're like, no, my parents! And they all are blown off the island, and you are left alone until you find another lady beetle, and she has no wings also. You both have no wings. And so you survive, you create more babies, and lots of beetles with like little stubs for wings that don't really work. This is the kind of mutation we see that is positive. And I have to put that in quotes because look at what's happening. You're taking a beetle that was winged and could fly, and now it has no wings. These are the kind of positive changes we see in nature. They're not fully positive. They're positive because of unique circumstances. Does that make sense? All right, so we had a few hands kind of go up and come back down.
I decided to use self-control because I was just going to say something stupid that I thought was funny.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Okay, I can't keep it, but I'm sorry, I have to say it.
How do we know that it's not a positive trait? Because the beetle might have been afraid of heights.
It's a really good point. You
So
should
it
ask
might
the
have
beetle.
been very positive
You
for
should
him.
also watch Planes by Disney. Masterpiece.
I was thinking of Buzz Lightyear,
The other thing about evolution that is not properly answered within the theory is that life requires many things all at once. And the all at once statement cannot be over exaggerated. Life does not work when you remove one piece. So just a quick example, because we did this a few years ago and I went a little in depth and it was kind of scary for a few of you guys. When you bleed, your body forms a scab. Anyone ever have that happen to them?
No,
Say that
never
again?
in my
Look
life.
at
You
this.
bleed, a scab forms. Okay, so here's the thing. The process of this liquid in your body magically hardening into something that can plug up holes in your body is amazing. Go check it out in a science book sometime. The diagrams are insane. We're talking like a 2-page spread of over 19 different chemical reactions that happen when you are cut. Here's why though. Think about this for a second. If your blood has the propensity, the ability, the potential to just suddenly harden up into a total blood-stopping solid, what would happen if that ever occurred and you weren't cut? You're just like sitting here one day and your whole arm just starts turning white. And you're just like, and you're like, come on, blood, flow! And there's like a scab forming inside your blood vessel and your arm just dies. Goodbye, arm! It's nice knowing you.
You
This honestly, think about this.
Yeah.
How often does that happen in the human population? Blood clots are rare, and the reason is because your blood is so well designed that unless you are living a very unhealthy lifestyle, or unless you already have some kind of illness, your blood does not want to clot. It really, really hates clotting. It's designed to just keep flowing properly all the time. And then suddenly you cut yourself and it just starts clotting. All by itself, it just knows to do it. And the cool thing is, the system is built with like catch-alls, where if option A for clot doesn't work for some reason, like you're sick or you're malnourished, or there's just a weird circumstance like you get cut underwater, then there's like fallback mechanisms that will realize, wait, mechanism number 1 didn't make the scab form. Quick, backup procedure, make a different kind of scab. Your body is just doing this all the time and you don't even realize it. But here's the thing. They've studied this mechanism and they've tried to figure out how it evolved. Because there's like 19 different chemical reactions that are all happening, and some of them like occur and hit other sides to tell it, yes, we are clotting, but we didn't finish clotting. We're still bleeding, so clot harder. And there's all these feedback mechanisms, and the weird thing is you can pick out any one piece, and you'll bleed to death.
Wait, what?
Like there's all these interrelying parts, and if you just take out any one of all the many parts, you will just bleed to death. The first time you're cut in your life, you'll just keep on bleeding. Unless someone like comes over with some super glue or something and just like fixes you up. And so here's the point though. In evolution, it's basically assumed that everything started out simple and single cellular and not all the pieces are there. And then slowly but surely one piece is added at a time. But the clotting mechanism, it wouldn't work with one piece or 2 pieces or 3 pieces or 4 pieces or 5 pieces. So if there was ever a human born that didn't have all the 19 or however many working parts all at the same exact time, they just die the first time they got cut. Done. Human race is over.
Well, then obviously they
Yeah, obviously. And so that's kind of the way evolution works. Whenever they run up against one of these problems where it's like, oh, well, they must have all just been there at the same time. Otherwise, we'd all be dead. And since we're not all dead, then that means they were all there magically at the exact same time.
Oh, but wait a minute. That doesn't make sense.
And this is really the truth, though. We've figured out long, difficult road. Science has proven life can make life, and dead things can't make life.
But what if a dead thing did make life?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Show
That
it.
is
What if somebody died while
Do it.
making life?
Jesus
Make it
died.
happen.
They
I
made
can
life,
easily do
and
that.
then
Yes.
no, they made life that was dead.
Well, Lion King says circle of life. Then when the lion eats the antelope, but then eventually the lion dies and it feeds the grass. So the dead lion helps
But
the grass grow
I-
and live.
We're not talking about a non-living thing.
And
We're
grass
talking about a
lives.
living thing.
Grass lives.
That-
Grass is a biotic
Grass is alive.
ecosystem.
It's a
Grass
plant.
does live.
Grass
That's
is
my
a
point. We're
Rocks
not
are
talking. You're
living.
not mentioning any non-living things to me.
Dead-
Those are all living
dead
things.
Lion. Dead lion.
But to be dead, you have to have been living.
If you put googly eyes,
Yeah.
So
obviously
that doesn't tell you how it starts. The point is this, guys. Where does the chain start? If a single-cell organism can evolve all the way up into us, where did the single-cell organism get its life?
From me.
Anyone who doesn't joke, please speak up. But if you're gonna joke, keep it to yourself. That's kind of the point. Evolution doesn't have an explanation, so people just get to guess. People just kind of get to make up their own. And so in some textbooks, you'll see there's like a list of possibilities, and they say, oh, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. In some textbooks, they just dodge the question. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to talk about
They
it.
think it just takes up time.
Just avoid it. The current prevailing theory, because now they're realizing that if the Earth is 4.65 billion years old, that's actually not enough time for life to evolve.
Oh, jeez.
So they're now supposing, well, it must have evolved on a different planet that was created earlier, closer to the Big Bang, and then brought here either by intelligent life forms or by some random freak asteroid that had it isolated in frozen water, and then it crash landed on Earth and continued to evolve
But then
here.
how did that thing get in the ice?
That is the point. They haven't answered the question. They've just bought themselves more evolutionary time.
Well, you're gonna have a crowd of people
They
yelling.
basically said, well, maybe over the course of 5 billion years elsewhere, we got single-cell life, and then the single-cell life got here and moved up through the ranks and became complex life over 4.65 billion years. But that still doesn't answer the question how it became alive.
Yes.
Doesn't get us there. And so far, we don't have any good answers for this. The last thing is that the Earth and our universe are not even close to old enough to allow for these random processes to make so many perfect creations. Because that's the other thing we're talking about here. We're not talking about a planet Earth filled with little microbes only. We're talking about planet Earth with a humongous inter-reliant ecosystem. And so what we're talking about is really interesting if you think about it. This isn't just like, well, okay, maybe single cell evolved into this, and maybe that evolved into that, and maybe that evolved into that. We're talking about millions of different species who all rely on each other to exist. And so evolution would have to explain how they all evolved in perfect sequence, how they all evolved perfectly relying on each other and not relying on anything else that didn't happen to exist at the time, or else it would have all died. So we're talking about an ecosystem at planet size all evolving in perfect synchronous with no real metering or mechanism to control all that. That's wild. That's extreme. I mean, if you think that the planet is self-regulating, just look at what we're capable of doing by cutting down some trees in the rainforest. What if a wildfire had done the same thing a few billion years ago? The whole planet could have died from the lack of oxygen created. That's the kind of madness they're saying just magically didn't happen. We all got here by random perfect chance. Yeah. Or by yeah, some of them actually are saying
it
that.
could have been another planet.
Mm-hmm.
Would that planet had to have been evolved either a little bit less than us or a lot more?
The only idea is not more or less. The only idea is earlier. Just that it happened earlier. They're not even prepared to say whether it was a single cell organism that flew to Earth in a comet or whether it was, a little chihuahua that was dropped off by Green Man in the spaceship. Like, they don't have an idea on how that happened exactly. They're just saying it happened elsewhere, and that's the only way they can really explain
That couldn't work.
the fact that it takes so much time.
It couldn't really work because if they were from another planet, because we need oxygen.
I'm just making stuff up. Okay?
Photosynthesis.
My point is, they're not positing, they're not suggesting it's this way or it's that way, just that it happened elsewhere and it got here after the fact. Yeah, Jaden.
I can tell you how life started. So all life started on the moon, and then the moon crashed into us, and that's why it's so small.
That makes very little sense.
I know, right?
Or the moon crashed into us and then
No.
they knocked
Is that why I love cheese?
Alright, so
What are you talking about?
this
That's
last
crazy
one,
talk.
this is kind of a big deal because a lot of junior hires, a lot of high schoolers, I'll be frank, a lot of college students who believe in God, they have trouble taking what the Bible says literally. The Bible says literally that the earth was made about 6,000 years ago. Literally. The Bible says it literally. If you want to try and retranslate Hebrew and make it say what you want it to say, you could pick another number. But if you take it at face value, what it actually says on the page, I did the math today, it was 6,021 years. That's how old the Bible says the earth is. Or if I want to be more specific, that's how long ago God made Adam. If you want to get real specific. 6,021 years ago. And this causes issue for people because they hear things like, well, what about this about the universe? Or what about this about the planet? Or what about this about the stars? Or what about this? And truth be told, most science classes aren't giving you a fair shake. They're not showing you every piece of science that exists. I've got here for you a list of 101 different evidences. Come on. I don't know if it's really going to do it because, it's a slow page because there's 101 things on it. We'll give it a second. Just let it breathe, take its time. There it is. Oh, geez.
I can read that so easy, guys.
So, 101 different evidences, and these are all scientific. These are things you can test, you can repeat, you can verify. You can go look them up.
Did you find this online?
I edited it down. If you want to go find it online, the address is up there. The reason I put it up there is because I had to take out a lot of detail from this list to fit it on the one slide. Okay. If you want the detail back, if you want the references, because I put up references and links to click on to prove and show the evidence for all these, you can go to the address, creation.com/age-of-the-earth. And if you're real interested right now, I printed off 10 for those who are hyper curious. These are the short list. These are just basically 13 favorites. It's not all 101. Oh, sorry, 14 favorites. So if you want to see the 14 favorites, grab onto one of those. But essentially, the idea is the universe is young. The Earth is young, and the science to show that it's young is plentiful. There is not just one or two little anecdotal bits of proof that show the Earth and the universe are young. There's a lot. One of my favorites is stars move. Did you guys know stars move?
No.
Stars move. So Well, usually we think about the sun like sitting there. It's a star. It just sits, and then like the planets go around it. That's usually how our brain thinks, you know. But really, stars are moving, and it's interesting to look at how stars move. And one of my favorite things you'll find on this list is that galaxies. It's number one on the little sheet. Galaxies that show a spiral shape. They are constantly in motion, and we can track their motion. We can look at that motion, and we can start to plot the vectors along which the stars are moving. And it's what gives them that spiral shape. That they're essentially all rotating around each other's gravity. It's like a shared gravity well. It's really cool. But what this ends up doing is it allows you to take that vector you've plotted over the short time we've been watching the stars. It allows you to make a projection about how it will move. But it also allows you to assign a speed to the stars. You can put a speed number on the stars. And then you can put it into a computer simulation and you can rewind it X number of years and you can fast forward it X number of years. And what we figured out is that if you fast forward a galaxy just a few thousand years, some of them maybe 1 million or 2 million, you end up with a complete lack of spiral shape. Like no spiral characteristics whatsoever. It becomes a frisbee. They just start to smush out and become perfectly evenly spaced. What this tells us is that a spiral galaxy is of a certain age, and if it was any older, it wouldn't look like a spiral anymore. But what's so cool about that is spiral galaxies are the most common galaxy in the universe. And frisbee galaxies are extremely rare. What that tells you is there's basically nothing old in the universe.
What?
Think about that for a second. A spiral galaxy is inherently young, a frisbee galaxy is inherently old, and we should see a bajillion old galaxies, and we should see like a handful of young galaxies. That's not what we see.
Wait a minute.
We see a bajillion young galaxies, and we see very rarely, only on special occasion, things that look old. That's really cool to think about. The list goes on, though. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. The moon basically only got there a few thousand years ago, or else it'd be touching us in the past. It would have come off the Earth, and not like a long time ago, but like recently based on its current trajectory. The sun would have engulfed the Earth if you go far back enough in history. Earlier in history, though, then they say the Earth is old. So, I mean, there's all these different things that basically set limits. And that's how this list works, if you guys pick this up. This basically says, here's 14 things that place a limiter on how old the universe could be or how old the Earth could be. It's not necessarily an exact, here's when everything started date. It's a, well, this thing proves it couldn't be older than this. This thing proves it couldn't be older than this. And if you stack all of these up, it basically lines up perfectly with what the Bible says. And this is the point. If the Bible's true, you shouldn't be able to find any credible evidence that says the Earth, that says that mankind, says that the universe is older than what the Bible says. Think about that. I mean, if the Bible's true, and someone didn't just make it up, then you shouldn't be able to find any credible evidence that can contradict its timeline. Yeah.
Apparently, in about like 14 billion years in the future, our galaxy is supposed to collide with another one.
It's exciting stuff. I'll have to TiVo that.
But it shouldn't happen.
I'm actually wondering.
Yeah.
Do we know exactly how long ago the Big Bang happened?
Supposedly happened?
Yes.
Okay, so there's another interesting issue, and that's that the Big Bang itself,
Did not happen.
it couldn't have happened, more like.
But how
What
long did
we're
we
talking
see?
about, how long do they say?
Yeah.
It changes almost every year. But it is about 14 billion years ago, I think.
That's just so stupid.
I have to double check that again. I don't
So-
remember now.
They changed
It was on my
every
old slides,
year?
but I tried to make it shorter.
It couldn't have happened because how would we record it?
No, that's not the problem. No, obviously they don't think they recorded it. No, the problem actually has to do with the energies involved. What we're talking about is everything compressed into a singular space. I mean everything. Like, all of it. Everything in the entire known universe compressed into a singular space. And what they're thinking now is that the energies involved in getting it into that space is greater than the sum of all energies that now exist. So, think about this for just a second. Hypothetically speaking, that means the Big Bang created something out of nothing, even if it already existed.
But what made it into
Nothing.
a huge chunk of
Maybe.
See, it's too much. You're basically suggesting that this thing has more power than can exist. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, Logan.
How long did they say the Big Bang was there before it blew up?
Yeah, I don't think that they measure time in a way that's going to make sense.
Because it kind of just sounded like they said.
No, it would have blown up in like fractions of fractions of fractions of a second.
Well, wouldn't like.
It's not like it would have sat in its one little spot all coexisting and like bounced around for a second and then, eventually exploded. It's like it couldn't have been like that for even a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second. It would have been there and then instantly just gone off because you can't hold it all there.
Another question.
It's
Where
crazy.
did they say that the Big Bang was?
What did they say it was?
No, where did they say
Where?
it was? Like,
Center of the universe,
Saturn.
roughly?
It was around Saturn.
Around
Saturn.
That's why it has the rings.
Half past Jupiter.
Half past Jupiter.
Right,
You guys are funny. No, it would have been essentially the center of the universe and everything would have exploded outwards from that. Wherever the center of the universe is.
Giant black hole.
Wouldn't there be stuff still floating in space from the Big Bang?
The planets.
That, yes, everything that exists. That's what they're saying.
Then how is the Earth the only thing that? How is
No,
our
lots
solar
of things do
system
that.
the only thing that evolves around the sun?
Well, no. There's other stars.
There's a couple other
And they've got
planets
stuff around
planets
around those
that
stars.
revolve around the sun.
Does that make
I know,
sense?
but
Like,
why
also
did
a
Earth
galaxy.
land in the sun? Do they have a theory for that?
well, no, there's other planets around other stars. So they're just thinking that we're just one of billions and billions of planets, and
we
there's
just
nothing
happen to be
special
the
about
one
us.
with humans on it.
Yeah, basically.
The one
With the
gold
sun
one.
Jeremiah.
with the perfect
So
temperature
what about
for us
the
to
second Big Bang when the doctor
Nope.
flew the
Nope.
door guy in
Nope.
the TARDIS?
Anyone else? Yes.
It's kind of funny because we would have had to be perfectly in the exact spot so that we weren't close to the sun, so that we would burn up and die.
Yep.
Not further away, so that we would freeze to death. We were in the perfect spot with the sun with a perfect temperature, perfect distance.
Basically.
Just,
And they say the
that was
Big
just
Bang
luck.
did that.
But here's the deal. We can't look at someone who believes in evolution and say, oh, well, they're less intelligent. Or we can't look at someone who believes in evolution and say, oh, well, they just don't get it. We can't make those calls because, honestly, a lot of us either still don't fully trust what the Bible says. A lot of us don't trust what the Bible says at all. I know that there are people who come to church, and that doesn't mean that they fully trust in what God has written. And I get that. So I'm not trying to make light, I'm not trying to make fun of what some people actually believe. This is the deal. When you believe something to start with, and then you see evidence, you see facts, you're going to look at that evidence, you're going to look at those facts, but you're already going to know something in your head. You're already going to believe what you already believed. And so if you go looking out at the stars and you already believe that everything is trillions and billions of years old, you're going to interpret the evidence they show you differently. Does that make sense? So a lot of these things, you show this to someone who believes in evolution, and they might actually have a great answer to it, try and explain it. That doesn't mean they're right. But that's kind of how it works. You show me evidence from an evolutionist, I'm going to interpret it totally differently than he is. Why? Because I already trust God. I already know what he said. I already believe he's absolutely 100% right. So I'm going to interpret that differently. So this is as much science as it is faith. You have to decide what you want to be the anchoring, foundational truth of your life. And I'll just be honest, I think that the odds are in God's favor. I think that the odds that life created itself from nothing are too astronomical to ever occur. I just don't think it's possible. I've looked at the math of it. I've looked at the hilarious math of it. The numbers of zeros don't fit on this screen. There's more zeros in the numbers of what the odds are of life coming out of nothing than this print could allow. We're talking about astronomical, ridiculous numbers. We're talking about like 1 inside of a number that is larger than there are electrons in the known universe. Like that's the kind of numbers of the odds against life just coming up out of nothing. It's ludicrous. So yeah, I trust God. I think that's a much more credible, much more believable explanation for how we got here than because random. I don't think that makes any sense. So here's a quick few facts. God is really the creator and the sustainer of all life. I believe it. I hope you believe it. Why do I hope you believe it? Because this changes lives. If you just believe in evolution because that's what people tell you, that's fine, but that's not going to help your life. That's not going to give you eternal life. That's not going to improve your relationship with the creator of the universe. It's going to lead you astray. And I'm a little bummed about that And that's why I share this with you guys. That's why I make a whole night about stuff like evolution. Because I want you guys to know that there is truth and it's testable with science, and it doesn't disagree with the Bible. That truth exists. So, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Natural processes cannot account for the beginning of life. I have not found one science teacher, one scientist, one textbook, one website that has ever shown a concrete way of explaining how a bunch of non-living matter became alive. It's never been shown to me. If you want to find it for me, great. But I've looked and I've looked and I've looked.
Well, that
You do want to just write up some lies and post it to a blog and then send me a link. Okay,
How
great.
dare you say those are lies?
All right, so God created everything to produce after its own kind. This is a true fact. The Bible actually says this. Is kind of a sciencey fact if you think about it, and it's in the Bible. I keep pointing. There's no Bible there. I usually set my Bible on that table.
There's Bibles
Anyways.
over there.
Yeah, okay, there we go. It's in the Bible. But God said he created everything to reproduce after its own kind. After its own kind. Now, God didn't use the word species, and so it's a little unfair of us to try and use that word species there, because we can actually show evidence of one species changing to another species. But what we're talking about is like this kind of horse into that kind of horse. What? This kind of dog into that kind of dog. This kind of fish into that kind of fish. And when we say from this kind to that kind, we're talking like this species to that species. They're not that different. It's like, well, now they're always short. They used to always be tall. Well, now they're always brown. They used to be green. It's not like it's a fish with fins and now it's a fish with legs. It's not those kind of changes. We don't see that
how you get
ever.
a problem.
Not the amazing
So the fossil record also shows us something really cool, and that's
Hold on
there's
for fish with
always
tadpoles.
been a wide diversity of life on our planet. There's never a place where the fossil record proves only proto single-cellular organisms were alive at this era in history. The fossil record just doesn't support that. The fossil record shows we've had an ecosystem from day one.
And the fossil
Well,
record is what?
If we're going to go Bible terms, it's not day one. It's like, it's day 3.
And
No,
fossil-
day 4. Day
So
4.
things
Fossils are-
died on day 4.
I'm raising my hand because this young lad
Go
is
for
blind
it.
and he wants to say something.
Go for it, Cody.
Fossils, aren't they like the main thing that evolutionists use to prove?
Kind of. Not really. So here's the thing. The fossil record doesn't support the tree they draw. This is the big issue I have. If they want to go ahead and show the exact fossil record, that's great. I wouldn't argue with that because it's literally what you're digging up. Just show that to people. Just show what you dug up. But they don't do that most of the time. Most of the time, what happens is by the time it hits a textbook or a website or some sort of presentation from a teacher, they've taken what the fossil record clearly shows, and now they've drawn their own lines in between things into a tree of evolution. And they get to move things around however they feel like and then put the lines there and say, this is how it happened. And they don't know that. They're just digging up dead, living things, things that used to be alive. They're not showing you what they dug up. They're not showing you what layer it was found in. They're showing you how they think it evolved. So they're not showing you the evidence. They're showing you their opinion about the evidence. That's not great. It's kind of cheating. Because then people see the tree of life where everything evolved, and they see the tree of life where everything evolved, and they see the tree of life where everything evolved. And they memorize that. And they never get to really look at and memorize and take hold of the evidence, the thing that's real, which is, here's what we dug up. And the fact of the matter is, most of the layers we find and the fossils in them, they actually show the world was hit by a catastrophic worldwide flood, and that the entire ecosystem was killed, and buried in the order of flood would bury things. That it would bury things on the ocean floor first, it would bury things that swim in the ocean second, it'd bury things that live near the beaches third, it'd bury things that live in the lowlands and the swamplands and the wetlands fourth, I'm losing count here, and it'd bury things that are on mountains or can get smart enough to run to a mountain last. That's what it perfectly
What about
shows.
flying things?
Flying things it shows in much smaller number. Isn't that weird?
No, it's actually.
It's not that weird, I know. It's not
What
that
if
weird.
one of them
That's
died
perfectly
inside?
logical.
They just fly until they get too tired and then they fall and die.
Well, yeah, but
And then they
if
go
that
into-
happens, they would die later on in the flood. They'd be less likely to
Wait,
get
well,
buried.
well, like if they
They'd
were
be more likely to
ducks,
just kind of float around in the
if they were
water
like
until they
ducks or
decompose.
something, they would just
No,
land on
because
the
then
water
their
and they would
bones
just
would
sit
float
there
to
and
the
die
bottom,
for fish.
or their
Bones
bodies
don't
would.
float. Or wait, bones don't sink.
Did they too?
Not most of
Their
them.
bodies sink then?
Most
They're
bones
hollow.
float.
Bird
Oh
bones are
yeah,
hollow.
you're right.
Especially
They're full
bird
of
bones.
marrow.
Thank you very much.
Bones
Yes.
don't
The
float.
bird will die and he'll just-
Daniel, you were just saying.
The other thing. Okay, so the Bible reveals that God made Adam in about 4004 BC or 6021 years ago. And there is more science to suggest we live on a young planet than there is an old planet. That's just a fact. And that's not a fact that gets discussed very often. So I want to make sure you guys knew that one. The Bible says the Earth is young. Science actually leans in the direction that the Earth is young. But the problem with a young Earth is that you kind of have to believe in God, or else there's not really a good explanation for how everything got here. So think about this. If you don't believe in God, and someone shows you something to prove the Earth is young, what are you going to think of that fact, that piece of evidence?
I was stupid to not believe it.
No, it's not. That's not human nature. That's not human nature. Admitting I'm wrong or going back on everything I've ever believed, that's not human nature. That's against human nature.
We're gonna say it's wrong.
You're basically going to assume it's wrong, and then you're going to try and figure out why later. But your first assumption, it has to be wrong because it goes against everything I already believe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's just fair, because honestly, I'm on the other side. I believe God created the earth a very short time ago, and so when someone shows me a proof or an evidence that they think says, you know what, the earth is ancient or the universe has been around for billions of years, my first reaction is,
No.
well, that's wrong. Let's figure out why. So, I mean, I just want to be fair. I'm not suggesting that you have to be less intelligent to be in the other circle. I'm not suggesting that you're stupid. I'm not suggesting any of those things. I get it. You're in the circle you're in because that's what you believe. You have it on faith. What I'm suggesting is we need to take another look. We need to say, science, do you have just one opinion? Or science, do you have evidence for the other side? Really check into it. Really dig. Really search. Yeah, Noah.
Is it true? Is it true? I haven't heard much about it, but I've heard that people believe that, well, some people believe, and a man found out that everything could have just been one continent, and then it drifted apart after.
Pangea.
Time.
Yeah.
I think that's relatively well supported by science, and I think it makes more sense in the scenario of a worldwide flood than it makes sense any other way. Because what we see with continental drift, it's not a question of how fast it happens, it's a question of the direction things move under normal circumstances.
It's all Scrat's fault.
All Scratch.
You guys haven't seen Ice Age? That's
Yes, I have.
joke from Ice Age.
How did the dinosaurs get?
No. So here's the deal. When continental drift is occurring under natural, normal circumstances, the normal amount of water in the ocean, normal amount of land mass, it doesn't happen in a everything spread out from one point kind of direction. Everything has its own direction. And its direction is based on the shape of the tectonic plates the continent rests on. So everything's heading in its own separate direction. And it's not going to all be like Pangea spread from one spot. That doesn't really work under normal circumstances. But in a flood scenario, it does. Because of where the flood would have started, because of how floodwaters can come up from under the crust, because of those accelerated processes, you would have normally, if you think of like a balloon, it doesn't pop all at once. It pops in one spot and then spreads out. That's kind of how it works when you fill an entire planet with water, cover over all the land masses. Suddenly the lava starts coming out most where the pressure gives first. And so you would actually have all the continents kind of get out of the way as one spot bursts first. One spot gives way first. And everything just kind of spreads out from there. Think of it like this though, land isn't very buoyant, but it does float on top of lava. Big giant crust masses, they float on top of lava. But if you want to get it to really move quick, all you have to do is cover it in water. Because the water now wants to get under the tectonic plate. That means the plate now feels lighter. So if you cover the entire planet in water, then the plates are actually lighter in a relative sense, and so they can actually move a lot freer when they're covered in water than they can in any other circumstance. So a global flood would get them to go whoosh and just kind of get to their new spots really quickly. Yeah.
So apparently Pangea broke into two parts, Gondwana and another one.
Okay, mostly. There's a few other big ones like
That was
Australia and stuff.
That was
And
probably
then
because.
did the flood that Noah's Ark was built for break the rest of them up?
No, that I think they all broke up from that. Follow what I was saying before. As far as I can tell, go through the whole world timeline, it would have been probably one supercontinent at the beginning. God creates the Earth, one major supercontinent, maybe some islands and stuff, but mostly one big supercontinent. And that would have lasted for thousands of years until Noah's flood. Noah's flood happened 1,400, 1,500 years after creation. So then during Noah's flood, during all that water, would be when the continents got up their steam and started moving really, really fast. And then that would have continued for a small while, and then they would have slowed down. They would have lost momentum. The lava starts cooling and hardening, and then they just they start to settle. And now the movement they have today that we see now is just little tiny movements based on the edges of the plates corroding and new edges being formed by lava leaking out. And it's just very tiny movements. But most of the movement would have happened all during the flood. Does that make some sense? Okay. Yeah.
So, how long was Noah on the ark?
It was about a year and change. I could redo the math for you if I look up the Bible verse.
About how long, at the speed that the flood was going, would it take to go all the way around the earth?
Like in the boat? Like just go around the earth in 1 year? I don't know. We could do the math. We could figure that out.
Because I was going to say, maybe if he started on one part of Pangea, went all the way around as it all flooded and then got washed back up.
That would have been pretty cool.
And came back
He
down.
probably wouldn't have known though, because it'd been like, look down, there's water. You look up at the sky. Every direction, there's water and sky. Like you don't even know. There's no landmarks anymore.
I think that's why.
And then like all the rain clouds, there wouldn't even been like visible stars for a long time. It would have been crazy.
Mom told
Yeah.
me to try to find the cheese.
Did Noah take fish
No,
on the
I
ark?
didn't.
Because you said all the fish in the sea would get destroyed.
Not all of them, but most of them, a lot of them. The planet would have to slowly recuperate. And that would make some sense too, that God would allow a lot of the fish to die in the process, because otherwise you'd have an unbalanced ecosystem when everyone gets off the ark. There'd be a lot more ocean life than land life. Kind of throw things out of balance. Not too much. The ocean's ecosystem has its own separate balance mechanisms that aren't totally exclusive of land, but they're kind of disconnected by a lot more than all the land ecosystems are. So yeah, a lot of fish would have died, but it wouldn't have had to be all of them for the flood to happen. I mean, when fish die in a flood, it's not just like, oh no, there's floodwaters, we automatically die. It's random circumstances. There's like a tree flowing through the water, or they get into a cloud so thick with mud and dirt in the water they can't actually process the oxygen out with their gills. Like there's going to be certain circumstances that'll kill them, and then the rest of the time it's just like, wow, the water's moving really fast today, and they're just fine because they're fish. You know what I mean? So like some of the fish would have died, some would not, and it's just going to be based on where they were at what point in time.
Wouldn't the salinity have been like totally messed up?
Oh, totally messed up. But you'd also have large pockets. Based on the timeline of the flood, the salinity probably wouldn't have balanced out worldwide during it. So you would still actually have, weirdly, large pockets of fresh water that are essentially sinking down under the salt water, and they can't make the salt exchange fast enough to equalize. They would get moved physically faster than they could balance out salinity-wise.
So like the freshwater fish would have to move with
Yay! Chasing the freshwater, yeah. Andrew, you had your hand up.
That's my question.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Salinity of,
Yeah, there's also a strong argument to be made that you wouldn't have to survive the whole time, because the flood itself, just because Noah was on the boat for that little over a year, doesn't actually mean everything was completely submerged
We should just make a
for over a
topic
year.
you could dial it.
Oh yeah.
We have,
Should make a mini diagram.
yeah, but not this year. This year, this was it. We're done. But in Dinos, Dragons, and Donuts, this is going to come up a lot. It's not going to be like just one time, one night. We're gonna bring up Noah's flood the whole time through. So, come to Dinos, Dragons, and Donuts. All right, guys, we're pretty much getting to the end here. These are the main points. This is what I wanted to make sure you guys remembered. God said what he did at the beginning, and it is actually backed up by science. If you have more questions on the topic, please feel free to ask them. If you have a real interest in this, or you just like donuts, come to Dinos, Dragons, and Donuts. These are the kinds of things we talk about every single time we're there. This upcoming Friday, so 2 days from now, is going to be a Dinos, Dragons, and Donuts that is about dragons in particular, and
Wait, just
about
dragons?
the periods in human history following Noah's flood. We won't be talking as much about creation and that span from creation to the flood. We'll mostly be talking about from the flood forward. So actually a lot of flood stuff this week too, but dragons, who wants to miss that? Yeah.
Are we going to be measuring how big the ark was?
Yes, we'll open that up with that. So what we'll do is when everyone's doing their hangout eating donuts, as soon as everyone grabs a donut, we'll just, whoever wants to can come out with me and we'll walk the size of the ark off out in the parking lot. Our parking lot, it's really cool, can just fit Noah's Ark. Just fit it. If you get onto the lawn on that side of the building, that's like past the ark. But just to give you a preview, like the length of it is as much as you can fit in our parking lot. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I have to say, today we were making, I work in first grade, and we were making little boats for our dads for Father's Day.
Nice.
And we went out to the garden, and the kids got to use like natural things to decorate their boat. And one little boy said, I want to make an ark. And so we helped him fully make an ark for his dad.
That's awesome.
I thought it was pretty sweet.
That's very sweet. I like it. Okay. That's it for tonight. God made everything. Science does actually back it up. If you have more questions, stick around. We're going to pray before we go, so don't bail just yet.
He's downstairs.
If you guys didn't know, we have a new flyer up on the counter. It's the one that's red, blue, and gray. And that is a calendar for the rest of summer. So if you want to just know what's happening in junior high during summer, Elijah's holding it up so you guys can see.
Sit down, be quiet.
That thing Elijah's holding up, that is a calendar for the rest of summer. So if you don't have one of those at home, get it, stick it on your fridge. That way you know everything's coming up in junior high during summer. Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, you are so good. You made everything, and you did it because you wanted to be friends with us. That's an amazing thing, Lord, and we can't really deserve that. We can't earn being created by you. It was an act of grace from the first place. And so we just thank you, Lord. You made us, you made this world for us to live in, and you paid the price when we messed everything up. You're the one who's going to fix it all. And so we just thank you, Lord. You're so amazing. You're so good. I ask, Lord, that you would work in each and every junior higher's heart here, that they would learn the truth about what you've done in the past, that they would grow to trust what you say in your word, and that you would secure them in their faith. Lord, just work in their hearts and help them when they have questions to find answers, to find someone who can help them with those answers. Lord, don't let any one of these junior hires slip away from you. Don't let any one of them think there's a question that can't be answered. We ask, Lord, that you would just hold us close and keep us there. We ask all these things in your name. Amen. All right. I love you guys. Always feel free to ask more questions, even if it's late. Come on up and ask me. I love answering your questions, or at least trying to. I'll be honest, sometimes I have to say, I don't know. I'll look it
I can
up.
ask my mom.
Yeah, Dad.
Cheers, Mom. Let's go down. No, we have to go down. I gotta get my phone. I don't have a phone.
Yeah, words are.
Yeah, sometimes, not all the time. So, when a fossil is fossilized, only under certain circumstances will anything with DNA survive. DNA also breaks down after a very short amount of time. Like the furthest we can even imagine DNA lasting when we run tests on it is like 10,000 years tops. No DNA should last longer than 10,000 years. It should absolutely break down if it's any older than that.
What are you
But we
guys
dig up
doing?
dinosaurs that have DNA still in it.
Pull my finger.
That's crazy.
No, pop your finger.
No, that's how you do it. You forgot this. And then you had to touch
Billions.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah,
That's basically the problem they have that they haven't solved yet. The first scientist to find DNA still in a dinosaur fossil was called a liar. You know what I mean? Like he was told you can't be a scientist anymore. You can't do science because obviously you're lying, you're faking stuff. And then more scientists started finding DNA and soft tissue, things like whole muscle fibers still intact. Those kinds of things are unimaginable if you're thinking that the dinosaurs were millions of years ago. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I thought he said.
Yeah. So we found stomach contents and stuff. And then that goes even further, and we found dinosaurs that eat grass. And they used to think that, grass evolved millions of years after dinosaurs went extinct.
When you look up Christian in the dictionary, it's a 0.
You're not having that tonight. Because you're
They're
not having
proving God
caffeine at
real.
almost 9 o'clock
But
at
what
night.
they're doing because they
It's not summer
know
for us
that
yet.
God can't exist.
Olivia.
What they're doing is they're
If
trying to
you
find
open
ways
it, I
to
will make
explain
you dump
it.
it out.
Oh, I love you, man.
That just about
But
made
they
me
don't
face.
they don't want to consider the possibility. That's really the issue.
We'll see you Friday.
Okay, see you Friday.
So take the facts that you just said, and if you're just hearing if you had to pick a theory the Big Bang created beer. Yes. Or God snapped his finger and everything was created. Which one would you do?
Well, what's more believable? Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Nothing creates something out of nothing, or something creates something out of nothing. Does that make sense? What's more logical? nothing
Yeah.
creates something, or something creates something. And I think that you have to kind of lean in the direction of something creates something every time. If you don't want to believe it's God, if someone doesn't want to say it was God, that's acceptable. I mean, you know, to at least go through it hypothetically, to at least think through things. But it doesn't make as much sense to say nothing created everything. That's just illogical. And so there's a lot of other theories besides God. There's tons of other theories. So one of the theories is called the perpetual universe. And the idea is the universe always existed. There was never a beginning. And then what the Big Bang was the end of the last universe. And that now this one came out of the old one. That's one of the theories they have. But again, how do you prove that? How do you study that? How do you figure that out?
Because you had to survive 1,000 million
You can't know it.
years,
So it's impossible. So you're stuck. So you can't do the scientific method. And so that's really the issue. Is they're saying, well, God shouldn't be considered because he's not scientific. You can't prove God. But the truth of the matter is a lot of the theories they're suggesting can't be proven either. They can't be subjected to the scientific method either. And so it makes about as much sense to say it was God as to say it was a perpetual universe. The difference is God has actually shown himself to be true in other ways too. So that's the cool thing. If you go with God as your theory, then you can start to look at history, you can start to look what the Bible says, you can start to actually make judgment calls. Well, if God is real, then would this be this way or would this be that way? And you can test it. But if you say, well, if the universe existed before as a completely different universe, what's the test? How do you start running that through its paces? And you can't. The cool thing about God is he would still exist. And so you could then run tests on that. You could then start to try and figure things out. So there's a lot of cool things about God existing that scientists just aren't ready for because there's a lot of baggage that goes with God existing. If God exists, then that means sin is real. And God's sin is real. And that means people are going to come one day if they reject him. And so they don't even want to consider the God thing because of all the other stuff that comes with it. I now have a life that's subject to someone else's opinion. I can't just live however I want to live.
He's trying to hit on the way back. That's what
People don't like that idea. They want to be in charge of their own lives.